Hello friends and welcome. So most of y'all who've been following me along know that I contracted COVID and I'm on day number 7, and so although I'm feeling actually quite great, my sinuses are still full, so you're going to hear congestion. And then also I haven't taught in a number of days, and so my brain's a little blah 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 this morning. I want to do some recovery. This is what I've been doing. But also, I bring these babies with me when I go traveling, when I do 10-day meditation retreats, when like any of that kind of stuff. These are some of my favorite ways to just like keep my body moving, the fascia healthy and hydrated, etc. You don't have to have fancy dancy yoga therapy tune-up balls. Some people have melt balls. You'll want two the same size and the same pressure. They can have a little give to them. You don't want them to be like baseballs, right? But also you don't want them to be too soft like racquetballs. So although these look like racquetballs, they're not. They're made with a specific pressure. Rad balls, rad rollers, there are all kinds of things you can get. These cost like $15.95. I like them because then I can also separate them out and use them individually if I want, but they come in this beautiful little bag so that I can keep them together. I don't have that, and I'm not going to have time, and I'm not purchasing that online. No big whoop. You should get 2 tennis balls, which are very cheap, by the way, a 3-pack of tennis balls. Get 2 tennis balls, which are a little bigger, but a really good pressure, and put them in a sock. You've got socks laying around. Maybe you have a holy one that you want to get rid of and you can't find the partner to, and tie off the end of the sock. Voila. Yeah. So yeah, you do have to have that in order to do this practice, but I think it's well worth it. And then hopefully you'll just love it and you'll start to use it more often. You want a hard surface that's going to come up off the ground a little bit that we'll use to put the balls upon for a couple of rolling techniques we're going to use. So get yourself together. Go ahead, hit pause, get everything that you need, and then come on back. You ready? So this is gonna be lower body rollout. So, you can have on pants, but one thing that for me, I notice is that when I do have pants on that are not yoga pants, that have a little bit of give to them, this kind of wraps up in them a little bit. So I like to do it either with bare skin or with like yoga leggings so that it's closer to my skin. So just throwing that out there for good measure. Oh, do you see that one laying in the background, Hunter? So I'm going to start with my left shin. It doesn't really matter which one you do first. That's just the closest to you on my microphone side. So there you go. All right. So you're going to take that block or that hard surface and put the balls on top of that. And then I'm going to be in hands and knees. My other knee will be next to that. And I'm going to come on with, if I don't fall over, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to come just below my knee, right in between those balls. So my shin bone is right in between those 2 balls, right? And this might be plenty, just being right here, right? I can regulate my pressure by bringing my hip down into it a little bit or lifting up off of it. And then actually I said start at the beginning of the block, but I'm so sorry. We need to start at we do need to start at the front. So you're going to figure out where you need to be. If your wrists get tired, you can come on to forearms. But we're going to go ahead and we're just going to start to roll. No, I do need to be on the bottom. Be somewhere, people. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to start to roll out the muscles on either side of my shin bones. Yeah? Now, the more powerful for many of us on the outside. So that may mean like, holy cow, that's sensitive. I don't want any more pressure on that. That may mean you lean a little to that side and internally rotate the shin, right, a little bit so you can roll into that bigger muscle group a little more. My brain is very foggy, so I apologize. If you feel like you're only getting, this much, you've got a really long shin and a very short thing, no worries. Just go ahead and just move the ball on the shin and start rolling a little lower on the leg. And just play with it. I mean, I can't give you an exact anything for this stuff. This stuff is, I think, very individual. I can give you tips and tools that I find helpful, right? Sometimes if you find a hot spot, you might just stay there with it. Roll into it, either take a little pressure off or I can put a little bit in. And I can breathe into it, and I can imagine that I just realized how tight my ankle and my foot were, so I'm going to soften them, right? And then when you find that hot spot, another technique that's can be very helpful is to point your toes, right? And flex your foot, pulling your toes back towards the block. So just do that a couple of times wherever you are. You'll feel that probably in the muscle that's on top of the ball. And then if I want to intensify that, I lift my knee up off of the block a little bit, right? I don't have it facing down. Well, I shouldn't say that if I want to intensify it. You can find out. Maybe the knee moves down a little bit, maybe it lifts up a little bit, and go ahead and point and flex and just kind of see where is it that you feel it's the most intense. Hips up, hips down. And I say the most intense. Don't go to the most intense place. Go to the place where you're hitting your area where it's like, whew, but you can still soften around it, right? If the muscle stays super tense and it's freaked out that you're going to hurt it, you're not going to get a ton of benefit in there. And you can go to another hot spot, and or if you feel like you're complete, go ahead and finish off that calf. And then just pause, come back for a moment, and come into seated, and just notice the difference between the two calves. Shins. And then when you're ready, you'll come up onto the other ball, other side, with the other shin. I'm going to stay further away from camera because my microphone's on this side, and otherwise I'm afraid you won't hear me very well if I'm constantly facing away from my microphone. So I talked a lot on the other side. I'll talk a little less on this side, but just a couple of reminders. I can move and lean a little to the knee that's on the ground to release a little pressure. I can bring my hip further down towards the leg that I'm rolling, a little more pressure. I can internally rotate my calf to go to the outer part of those bones and get that big burly muscle. That might feel too intense. I might lean away, etc. Right? So go ahead and just kind of play with it. If you need to move the ball at some point because you're missing those muscles lower down or higher up, yeah, you betcha. Do it, do it. And then for the last part, if you find a hot spot, or when you rolled out, you're like, ooh, that spot could use a little attention. Find the right amount of pressure, the right spot, and then maybe point and flex the foot. And again, you can always move the knee a little down or a little up and see if that changes that experience and where would be the best experience for you today, right? And if you have one more hot spot, go ahead and do that one more hot spot. Same idea. I just started rotating my ankle. That feels kind of nice and plays with the muscle in a different way, right? Just play, experiment, play. Each time I come on, I do slightly different things depending on that day. And then go ahead and come on off. And you can just sit back. So that was the front of the calves, the shins. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to go into the back, the meaty part, right? So I can put it, I'm going to roll down, right? So, and I don't ever hit, I like one foot back by me. Some people like one leg extended. You lift the hips, lean back into the hands. You can come onto forearms or blocks. But it's that idea of, I don't feel like I'm ever going to roll out the entirety of my bone with just this setup of this block. So I just go either high or low. I can lift and rotate into external rotation and get more of those muscles outside. I can lift and rotate into internal rotation, right? So again, just kind of play with whatever it is that you need today. I have my butt lifted just a smidge so that I can roll a little forward and back. And then if you find a hot spot here, stay on the hot spot, and then you're going to go ahead and, suggestion if it feels okay, just take your femur bone, that's your thigh bone. You can put the butt down if you want to break, right? I like a little more pressure. I stay a little up. And roll that femur bone from right to left and go across the grain, so to speak. And if you need to go a little lower and roll out a little bit of that lower. And you can play with it again, find out what part of the calf needs the most attention, and if it all does, go through all of the bits and pieces. Not using so much pressure that you can't soften. And if you have a hot spot down in that area, again, you might put the butt down or leave it up. You might go on the forearms. You might rotate your femur bone. Even here, I could point and flex my feet, and that's going to play not quite as much as the front side, but, and then let that leg come down and notice what you notice. We're going to go to that other side. So again, I would pick like high or low, right? I'm going to roll just on other side of that. So I kind of find out, the more you do it, the more you kind of figure out, oh, if I put it here on the block and here on my leg. But just go ahead and start to roll up towards the upper part of the calf and down towards the lower on whatever part you're working with. Again, I like my foot on the ground for support. Some people just have it out and they work it with a long leg. Feel free to lift it and externally rotate, yada, 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 yada. Ooh, that's sensitive today. All right, so you'll start to feel, and you know, I wish I was a little bit better about doing it on a really regular basis, because I mean, it's really informative. The few times that I have rolled it out one day, the next, you know, the next kind of thing, especially if I do trips or hikes and stuff, is that noticing the shifts, not only from rolling it out and taking the time, maybe you pause and just let your femur bone rotate, but also it's like, you know, I can roll something out and have it feel this one way and this one tightness, you know, tightness in one part of my muscle, and then 2 days later it can be a totally different part of my leg. Just reminding me yet again how impermanent everything is. If you want to do that other part of the leg, lower or higher, depending on where you were, rolling down towards the Achilles, up towards the knee. Feeling free to experiment and explore your body. You don't have to follow with what I'm doing. Although, you know, if you're not sure, you can do the imitate, and I don't mean that in a bad way. We imitate before we innovate, right? And that's very true with me in my teaching. I imitated every teacher I ever took for years and years before I started becoming my own teacher. And then go ahead and come off of that and just notice what you notice. Hopefully we're starting to feel a little bit of freedom down in those lower legs, so to speak. And then we're going to come on up and we're going to do some stuff in the upper legs. So you can move that block off to the side. And for this one, and again, either leg, doesn't matter which one, we're going to start down by the knee. So I'm going to have that right in front of my knee, again, with one ball on either side of the thigh. And I'm going to come on down onto my forearms. And first, just pause, right? You can curl those toes under and lift the leg a little bit if it feels like too intense. You can uncurl the toes and you can let the full weight of the leg come down onto it. And then to roll with this one you got to use a little bit of core. If you're like, nah, not feeling it, you could just do baby rolls, you know, and move the block every little bit. Otherwise, I push down into my non-bald knee, tone my belly up a little bit, right? And then I just kind of move a little back and forth. Actually, I lie. I have that knee lifted. I have my toes curled under on that opposite leg. And that's how I'm getting my movement. My heel a little back. And then when you feel like you hit a hot spot, if you do, you can stay on it, you can rest on it. Again, you can play with internal and external rotation. And then when I feel like I need to move, rather than reaching down to grab my ball, I'll literally just move my whole body down a little bit till I'm in that middle-ish part of my thigh. It gets more sensitive for me as I go up. Again, you can curl the toes under or have them uncurled, right? You can use that knee down and do smaller rolls. You can lift the opposite knee, tone that belly up. Please use the belly so the low back does not take the brunt of this. Externally, internally rotate. Play with it. If you hit a hot spot, you might just pause. You might just rest all your body weight down into it and take a breath or two there. Right, so again, you don't have to follow what I'm doing. I'm doing what my particular thigh needs, this left one today, right? And again, you could go down and move the balls, or you could just simply move your whole body back to start move to that upper part. And same idea. You might just stay still. You might roll a little forward and back. Oh, my balls are starting to turn a little bit. Just adjust. If they run out away from you and they right from under the thigh, just put them back under. And you might stay if you find a hot spot and just rest into it. Toes curled under or not, etc. Soft jaw and shoulders and tongue. And then go ahead and take another 2 breaths to finish off whatever you got on that side. I just like to push myself back and up. And then we're going to do that other side. So I am going to start a little higher on my mat. I bring that underneath that new knee, just underneath it, or just above it. And I come on down on the forearms. And I might just stay there. And that might be all I do. Right? Whatever you find to be what assists you with the movement you need, right? Whether or not that opposite knee is down or lifted, the toes on either or both feet curled under, belly definitely toned wherever you're working from. If you find a hot spot, you can pause and just take a breath or 2 into it. Hopefully you still hear my voice. I'm moving away from Mike to look at the camera. I apologize. I'm going to move my whole body down so I'm more middle thigh-ish and explore and experiment here. If you find a hot spot, now's the time to stop on it or not. Pardon me, I am definitely congested still. So there may be a little yang. I don't know what the word for that is. Okay, and then move to that last part of that more upper type thigh or area on the thigh. Rolling it out if you want or not. Oh, this is where I'm starting to get caught in my material. Yeah, I found out with these balls a long time ago, the less material you have or the tighter it is, the better off you are. If you've got a hot spot you want to stop on, now is the time for that. And soften down into the ball, right? I can be here for a while and realize, wow, I'm still holding a ton of tension. So just trying to notice if that's you and softening that tension. And then coming on up. So we got one more area on the front of the body. We're going to take those balls out, right? And then this time we're going to put them right in. We're not going to roll on this one, so my as-is bones are right there. I'm going to bring them down and in just a little bit so that they're right where my hip crease is. Yeah, if you're not sure, you could always do that from when you're up, kind of come down into those, right? And then you know where that is for you. So I'm going to bring them into that little crease. And then I'm just simply going to do something like a crocodile pose. My elbows are wide, my hands stacked. And for me, this one's not like, well, it depends. Some days it's like, whoo, yeah, right? Or I can find a hot spot. If you're like, I'm not really feeling anything, you could always move it around a little bit, the balls, and see if you find a spot where, you know, you do find a little bit of work that needs to be done, we'll say. A little attention to that area. But we're just going to slowly let those hips melt down, 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 as if we could come all the way down around the balls and they would become part of our body. Notice where you're holding your tension and try to let it go, especially if there's any in the hip joints themselves right now.
And it's just that this time, just this resting. Let's do 3 more breaths, and this time I want you to try to target the breath, so to speak. Don't be effortful and don't get stressed out about it, but inhale and see if you can't fill up that low back kidney area. And do a couple more breaths, trying to inhale into that area. And when you feel complete, you'll bring your hands next to your ribs, tone the belly up to push the floor away. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to bring those balls back into their original contraption. There's lots of bird action back here, so I'm watching the birdies. Okay. And we're going to do hamstrings. And then we'll do a little glute and we'll be complete, I think. This is going to be a lot longer than 20-minute video probably. But from there, right, some people can just have it down low, right? I mean up high, but with their body down low. And, you know, again, you can put your foot on the ground or have your legs out or whatever works for you to roll. I personally don't feel much with that, and especially not on a softer surface. So, pardon me, I like to bring in that harder surface of the block again, and I like to roll with the block as my ground, if that makes sense. So that doesn't mean you have to. I would say you're probably going to want to do the back of the thigh and, you know, 2 or 3 stints. You can stop, you can rotate, and you can play with that as well. Again, you're just, it's whatever it feels like it's helping your body to release tension, to move the fascia and the muscles, to rehydrate, right? Whatever that is for you personally. And let's take about 3 more breaths wherever you are to complete the back of the thigh. And then let's go ahead and let's go over to the other side. So again, I can't tell you if it's better for you on the ground or up a little higher, if you need to come down on forearms, or you could be next to like a coffee table or something maybe. I don't know, experiment. And, you know, move around as much as you need to find the spots that you could use your attention. Feeling free to stop if there's sensitive areas, to rotate, right? I could do the whole thing externally rotated if that's the part of the body that needs it the most, you know. Then we also start to get into that IT band a little bit. And we're not going to roll out just the IT band. I think these balls are too hard for that work. And so that'll be another day, another video somewhere. I don't think we need to have like crazy amounts of pressure and really hard in the muscles, personally. You go ahead and finish off that hamstring one more time. Let's take those balls out. And for this one, you're going to come onto the back side of that hip joint, yeah? And we're just going to go ahead and do that. We're going to do the pressure this way. You're going to come down onto your back, and like you would for a bridge, you're going to go ahead and bring those under, right? And have them on about the back side of the hip joint, somewhere around there. Again, experiment, play. Once we start moving, you can always be like, ooh, move them in or out and kind of play with where it is that you need that. You can see the arms out and walk the feet out or leave them in a little bit, but it might feel nice just to move into, I don't do full windshield wiper. I mean, sometimes I do, but sometimes I'll end up kind of losing the one ball under the leg moving into internal. So I might just play with the external rotation of one of the legs, right, as I start to move through. So hopefully that's making sense and you're feeling that. You know, if you feel like you do want to move through the full range of motion, do. It puts a little more pressure into that ball. Don't put so much in that your glutes are like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Ah! If you feel like you want to move the balls a little bit after doing that a couple of times, a little up, a little down, you can play with, you know, where is the next spot? Or, oh, maybe this is the spot and I missed it the first round, or whatever that is, right? And you might even move the legs both into external rotation and just pause and then try to soften down into that. You could put blocks underneath your thighs if that feels like too much pressure. You don't have to be as far out as I am or anything like that, right? And then go ahead and one more spot. We're going to move them up just a little bit above that hip joint. And for this one, you might just roll a little bit right to left. But again, if it feels better to leave the balls still and just move the legs from side to side, you could. But just go ahead and just take, you know, I say up above the hip, but if you're like, I want to be down, awesome, you should totally do that. And then go ahead and move those balls out to the side. You can just kind of release them. If they roll away, it's okay, unless you're, you know, someplace public where they're going to roll far away at your home. You'll find them again. We're going to take a mini Shavasana here. Walk your feet wide, lean your knees in. So let's leave the feet on the ground version today. Constructive rest pose. Shavasana arms. And just notice the lower part of your body. That was the main thing we focused on, right, from the hip joints below. Let's take about 3 more breaths here. Awareness in the breath. And then roll through, fetal either side. Come on up. Find yourself in an upright posture. We'll only be here for just a moment. Bring those hands together in front of the chest. Inhale. Exhale, bow your head. Just taking a moment of gratitude. This beautiful, beautiful body. And hopefully, maybe we have done a little recovery for our body. Helped our body with recovery. Namaste.